Hello. Welcome. It is, of course, World Building Wednesday. I, of course, am your host, Casimir Basilius. And, well, firstly, I would like to apologize. Theoretically, we were supposed to start, words are hard, solo Sunday. As you can see, it is, in fact, not Sunday, as occurs on occasion as time moves ever forward. So I don't know what happened. Things came up. It was, of course, the day after Dice Saturday, and well, I I don't recall. Things came up, and well, hopefully we'll get to Solo Sunday this Sunday. Yes. And yeah. So, I mean, we're going to work on what we would theoretically be doing on Sunday today, although it is more world building than character decisions this time. And we'll see what happens, what we build. I have a plan, theoretically, and that is to work on factions, organizations, planets, lore, the good stuff, world building things here on World Building Wednesday. Can't, unfortunately. The laws of time are restricted. We can't change time. That would draw attention to our little operation, attention we cannot afford. But we do know it is the 26th day of the second month of the year 7897. Oh, how far time has gone. What does that even mean? Well, to me, it feels like looking up at the calendar and just the other day it was 7887. Now it's 7897. Almost well, well now I'm curious. I'm gonna go look at my file. Searching law. Scroll down to the history chart. Of course, I'm pretty sure, haven't been broadcasting galactically since the 80s. I suppose you could call them the 80s. Of course, our time does work slightly differently than your time. You're probably used to, I don't know, what, 365 days in a year? We have less. We have 336 days in a year. So time does move a bit faster. Well, time doesn't move faster. The year counter goes up faster, ever so slightly. Here we are, history. Our galactic history. So many eras. Here we are. Yes, wild. It was actually over. Wait, yeah, no, that would make it over 10 years. In 7883, the second, well, the era of peace ended. I say the era of peace. There was a time in which there was a, a, a brief lessening in major conflicts between the Second Galactic War and, well, the First Galactic War and what is now the Second Galactic War. The Second Galactic War started in 883. We're now in, well, as stated, uh, 897. So it's been a while. The era of peace has ended. Yes. Anyway, I should probably open this and our other files as needed as we work on, well, expanding the map and these so stated objectives, or we'll get off topic and just ramble. Also, we still have the creature craving the coffee that I have right here. The creature craves the coffee. I can't help but that old video, that old Elysian meme video. There's a weird cat over here. True. I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to give the creature a hat. I still can, but that would take time and focus that I cannot afford at this moment. But we will get that creature a hat eventually. Eventually. I'll have the conscripts make one soon. And by that I mean they'll wander over to the machine and be like, one imperial hat. It's actually a bit more complicated than that, but it's not important. Just buy more focus. Well, of course, we could just, you know, have the factories produce hats, but what is, look, if it's entering my most noble estate, it shall be produced by the finest artisans this side of the empire. So it's not as simple as, as having one brought in from the factory. Yes. Anyway, we've had a bit of a error recently. I say error. Our settings recently got messed up, and I just learned about it uh, moments before we started. Specifically, my audio is messed up. Apparently, all of my audio settings got thrown off, and this the usual new microphone we use basically was unselected. We selected it, which got it fixed, but a lot of the settings are once more gone, vaporized, no more, ceased to be, pining for the fjords, obliterated. Yes. So, we're gonna have to fix that at some point. All of my filters that make it so the clinking of the mug of coffee theoretically shouldn't be picked up is, though to be fair, they were also sort of messed up the first time we swapped over to our new broadcasting device, but we'll have to solve all that sometime. Anyway, we're rambling. We're doing that thing about rambling when we should be world building. I suppose we're just doing our intro ramble, as is tradition. What else? What else? Nothing else really new. We worked on nations as usual. Was there anything major that was done recently? As I go over to my worksheet, not the worksheet you see here, the rule books sheet. Wild. Oh, I rewrote military rules for assigning them as assets for nations and how that works. There's a slight modification that needs to be tested. I reworked some air and ocean direct combat options. That was neat. So here's a little ramble. The main issue with air combat is accurate air combat. Um, so air combat takes place at range. Modern day, I say modern day, space fighters and all that. Well, to be fair, modern day has been stuck in a technological backwater for quite some time. So, tech level 9 and 10, air combat, and modern air combat being tech level 16 air combat, all of it. Even though tech level 16 air combat tends to trend towards air combat, tech level 10 air combat. Point being, the issue is at beyond visual ranges, aircraft movement looks map scale. It causes issue. How do I even begin to? Here's how. Here's how. We go to here. So, welcome to the average city map. We use this to represent 1 kilometer, or, on occasion, 10 kilometers. If each square is 5 feet, it's 1 kilometer. If each square is 50 feet, it's, of course, 10 kilometers. If each square is uh, 2.5 feet, we drop to like what, half a kilometer, 500 meters? We don't use the 2.5-foot range often. It's usually used for interiors or more granular living areas. Anyway, that's not too important. Also, if any of my players are looking, they'll see something that they never see. Why? The answer's simple. And what? Nothing that important. The grid here. This grid is not the grid I was talking about. This is the invisible grid that only I see for, see, if this is player view, wow, they see nothing. Theoretically, they'd see the map that was made there. But basically, this grid of actually determining how long and large things are. For instance, each one of these is 100 meters. the 5-foot scale, and then at the 50-foot scale, each one of these is a kilometer. Yes. Anyway, back to topic. The grid I'm talking about is this one that you can't see. I realized that I should probably edit the map. Nope, wrong one. File, adjust grid. That's what we're looking for. Bam, visible. This. Oh gosh. The grid. No, my eyes. Um, so, average air combat. Let's assume each square is 5 feet. Okay, well, first issue. Let me actually go to my files here so we can place things that would be useful. Okay, each square is 5 feet. So why don't you just do air combat like that? Okay, there we are. Let's do air combat at 5-foot scale. As a modern day vehicle, let's assume that this hover vehicle moves at modern day speeds. Let's assume it moves at 2,000 miles per hour. Oh, it moves 17,600 feet. Wait a second. That's significantly. Oh, it looks like this scale doesn't work. Okay. Looks like we can't really have an air engagement at that scale. So let's go to 50-foot scale. Sure. Each square is 50 feet. So this thing's probably, maybe like that. It moves 17,600. So each square is 5, so we just add 10 at the end, right? So this is 17. We've just basically traveled half the map in one action. It's not really the best for engagements or dogfighting or any of that if you're traveling half the map and then you're gone. And and so basically, in short, you have to go to, in my opinion, the 100-meter scale. But even then, you're moving several squares, but then dogfighting feels a bit weird and distances feel a little strange. It works. It's probably the best scale to do things at, honestly. On occasion, I've run the math many a times. The much faster vehicles tend to move a bit too fast still. But at that point, we're talking about much faster orbital speeds, honestly. Like, you're really probably not going to see anything moving at, probably not going to see anything moving at 5,000 miles per hour, even in our modern era, outside of space, that is. Atmosphere causes issues. Can you see something moving that fast? I guess, yeah, technically. But maneuverability and, like, you're going to get issues. Point being, you're probably not going to see something moving that fast. So, let's assume you are moving at 5,000 miles per hour. That gets us to 44,000 feet a turn. 44,000 feet a turn gets us to 134 squares of 100-meter squares. 134 squares gets us, I'm going to do a little bit of quick math. 134 divided by, well, not divided by 5, times 5 gets us 670. So let's assume we were doing 100-meter squares. If this thing's moving at 500, we're going like here. This is not the speed usual things work at. Most things are slower, but you see, that's actually reasonable on this kind of grid, and it lets us use the hex maps, and it's far more useful. Anyway, point being, we've done a slightly vaguer thing for quicker engagements. Same with naval engagements. Naval engagements are usually at significant range, meaning you have issues at these longer ranges. But it does work, especially because if each square is 100 meters, 1 kilometer is 10 squares, right? Which gets us to 50, meaning we can basically handle a kilometer like this, which also makes it a rather okay scale for boats. However, the boats aren't going to move far, but we can obfuscate that by crunching time a bit and having each turn be a minute. Anyway, that's just things we think about in our off time. But that's not what we're here for. We're here. Oh, wrong map. Huh. Anyway, we're here for the frontier sector. Ah, the difficulty of finding a sector map when I lose where I put it. There we are. Oh, nope, that's Sacred Grove. That's not what we're looking for. Hmm. It's here. Here we are. Okay, so let's actually get to work, I suppose. After some coffee, that is. Okay, so we have a system, or a 4 subsectors. We have 4 subsectors. We, of course, are going to expand them. We're going to create factions, organizations, and sort of goals and ideas. Of course, we know our goal and idea is to go deep into this sector, find the location, and do as we stated before, which is going to be to explore and map and negotiate and all that. But let's make our starting area, basically. There are multiple ways to go about this, but we are going to craft some of this by hand, as opposed to using the, oh, I forgot that this was the token we used. Yes, we're going to, we're going to basically not use the random generator currently. A poor system. No, no, it's not my system, luckily. Although if it were my system, I'd have a lot of territory to conquer, which would be nice, but no, unfortunately. And fortunately, because it's in the middle of nowhere. So, we have our basic outline here. An important question to ask is, how does this outline shape the area? We have some information about the system we are in that we should actually transfer into the actual file. Let's see. We open our data sheet. It's a good star system. It's fine. Sort of. I say when this system is noted as, and I quote, a trade hub with imports from the deep frontier that has a thriving shipyard and incompetent leadership, and is a noble location for crime and pirates, which is a interesting location to start with. Here we go. As I manage our tabs here, here we are. We'll slap that note into the file. There we are. There. Now if we ever just click on it, it will pop up, theoretically. Yes. Good. So, question one. How tied up are connections here? Like, how big is our little frontier outpost nation and their surrounding area? We know that this is probably the hub. The question is this the main hub, or are there more civilized areas up here? We know that this is basically the edge. This is as far as civilization is. I say civilization, known civilization. That doesn't mean we don't know that people have been down here. They have, but this is the basically edge of the outposts and civilized worlds. This is an independent world, which we should probably note, which we will right now. Here we are. Should probably. There we go. This is an independent world with. Does it have ties? Yes. Only loose ties. Mostly in the form of trade. Okay. Hmm? In what way? How is it split in two? Oh, you mean the subsector? Yeah. Not wrong, not wrong. For a second there, my brain jumped to the sector as a whole split in two. The subsector? More than likely. But we know that this upper area does lead towards civilization, a ways off. Did we actually mark that? That's an important question. For that, we need to go to the main map. I think we determined we were somewhere here. I think that's what this marker is. Okay, so we are a ways away, very far away, in fact. So the influence, we can determine that the influence here is very, very small. So when we say, what's the word I was looking for? When we say connection and influence, we mean very little. Almost no connection outside of, almost no connection to the outside, no connection outside of the little trade they receive, given that we are so far out of the civilization. But to be fair, these are somewhat known nations. I say somewhat known. They're basically, as stated, very little trade. So, I suppose this is our little, I say our, this is basically, I suppose this is really the edge, isn't it? Given that this is we are heading out from to go deeper, this is the edge. I suppose we also need pirates. That is something we did note. Pirates operate here. The question we have, I suppose, is how big are these pirate operations? Are they major? Are they not too big? These are the questions. And up north in these slightly more northern worlds, how unified are they? So when we say there's no civilization from the north there, that doesn't mean there aren't little empires, little nations running these territories. It just means they have no connection to the major nations. They could have whole militaries and control whole areas. But I think there's no major powers here. Well, well, I like the idea that there is a power here. I like the idea of a small trade nation that controls this entire chain of star systems. They are closer to civilization. Yes. Now, the hard part is how do we mark that? Hmm. We'll mark that with a little notation that we'll edit later. For now, we'll just slap a little note down. There we go. Bam. This also gives the pirates something to, well, pirate. There we go. So basically, these four will be part of a little trade conglomerate. Given that, well, again, these places are receiving trade, even if it is small from up north, they're also trading with each other and such. So I say they'll probably have that. We can also theoretically, a fun thing we could do is make an actual trade chart. I say fun. Yes, corridor nations. Trade chart is this little thing we can make that basically it's from a different system. It basically handles planets. We've converted it to work with GR, but basically it could also theoretically handle more than just planets. It can handle star systems. Basically, it determines what goods that are in demand or in export, import, and all that. And it's really neat little quick trade thing as opposed to our full trade rules. One moment, more coffee. I have to mute when I drink coffee as opposed to just be able to drink coffee because the filter, again, isn't working, which is unfortunate. Let's see. So, yes. What was I gonna say? Oh yes, the complex trade rules, which were a lot more in depth. So, I think I've said many times before, GR, Galactic Requiem, is ideally simulationist. We have a lot of accurate simulation that can, well, I say accurate, somewhat more in-depth simulation that can be done and handled, but it adds a lot of complexity that is often best left not done. It's easier to have simpler simulations for these things as opposed to full-on simulations, as I've found over time, even though we have that capability, and I enjoy that capability. For instance, yes, roll the demands. If roll this increase of demand versus this many credits per ton per population unit, that this demand changes every month unless there's the planetary shortages that are constant things that are needed for import, which aren't changed every month. Then there are the exports. There's the exports that change and the exports that don't change. Repeats of exports increase export pressure, which are affected by the population and the amount of monetary change gained or not gained. These imports, the set imports, which are the constant ones, and set exports only change over the course of a 5-year change and have a chance of remaining the same, while the variables can change every year as per the demand, and then there's the shorter change ones which change every month. Each one has an increase or decrease in amount of worth based on the amount of scale that it changes at, which is based on the imports and export pressure of the planet, based on the economic type of the planet, and whether that planet's a hub, a or one of the 5 different planet types, the different planet types being. For that, we need to go over to our random generators. Here we are. There we go. The planet types being, these are types, not so much planet types as modifiers that can be applied to the exports of a planet, being whether that planet is a producer, a refiner, a hub, a transit, or a consumer. The producer has more exports. The refiner has a balance of exports and imports. A hub has increased ship traffic, but no major increase in either. A transit is a standard with no increase in either, and then a consumer has an increase in imports. These are modified by the planet's efficiency modifier. By the way, all of this is modified by, at least in the old, more complex system, the economic index output modifier of the planet. This in itself is modified, and then I could genuinely, I could go on. Unironically, we could go on. These are not just random words I'm throwing out there. These are how it worked. And I think I'm going to go on a little bit, just a little bit. Here we are. So all of that we mentioned, as I said, is affected by the output of the workers, the population of your planet. The population of your planet has both either the simplified output, which we eventually resorted to doing, or the not so simplified output. We, even back then, were like, hey, I don't want to run this math each time because it's literally custom for every single planet and its modifiers to determine the end modifier. And I quote, the private economy and the public economy has an average of 441 divided by months times population divided by 10 for private economy in credit units. The non-average is 441. By the way, that number 441, remember that. 441 plus infostat mod plus buildings economy times 5 times pop divided by 10 equals monthly private economy total. That is split. That number in itself is split between each one of the government branches, each one of the groups, being left, center, right, capitalist, socialist, authoritarian, libertarian, military, corporations, and foreigners. Each one of those in itself has its own share of that money that they're allowed to spend on their goals. By the way, that number that I told you to keep in mind of 441, that's the average that we decided to simplify down. From what, you ask? Well, where is it? That is the average we decided to calculate based on the resource unit calculation of a planet. The resource unit calculation of a planet, I say resource unit, it's more the economic calculation of a planet, is its industrial base, its industrial level, its industrial base, its space infrastructure, its importance index, its resource type and class, its labor, its infrastructure, and its efficiency, all calculated together to get that number, which equates to 441 or whatever. Basically, what is that number? That number is not just add those together. No, that'd be too easy. It's you multiply certain ones, divide certain ones, etc., and it eventually equates to that number. But it could get more or less depending on what variables you input into here. And basically, yes, it goes on and on. And it's a bit it's let's put it this way. If I want to roll dice to see what a nation is doing in the galaxy, I don't want to have to do all that math just to be able to roll the dice to determine what a nation is going to do. It's real nice that the math is there to do. It's real nice that the math is there to do that. But how about we don't? How about we just go, okay, their economy gets them a +1 on this roll, and then we roll the dice. How about that? Or, I mean, it doesn't have to be a +1. We're perfectly fine with a little bit of complexity, like, oh, they earn this many resources, and they earn that many resources, and it equals this. But having to be like, well, the import of trade has caused a deficiency in their raw metals, which has caused their infrastructure number to go down. And due to this, we have to calculate this, which multiplies by that, which equates to this. No, 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 no. We're fine. We're fine. I'm fine giving them like a +7 on the roll. Thank you. And so we've moved towards more simplified, yet still complex, not complex. How do I put this? What we try to achieve is a rapid ability to look at a planet and go, okay, they're going to do this, this, and this. This, and this are their modifiers without having to crack open the calculator with the little squiggly numbers. When we're cubing, when we're cubing and then cube twice, multiply by 5, +7, divided by 3, then we're like, you know what, maybe not. Simple, yet still complex enough to create some form of a little bit of accuracy, or at least the illusion of the illusion of accuracy in our system. You know, it's all about, so yes, the numbers, the squiggly numbers are super important. True. Well, the squiggly, so how do I put this? Things should have effects. Things should have effects. But when you have to do all sorts of advanced math to find that effect, it becomes not ideal. I want to be able to go, okay, your economy's not doing good, but this applies this. So 7 minus 2 plus your modifier of 3 for spending these resources on it gets you your result. as opposed to having to break open a literal spreadsheet to determine anything. This is what we seek to achieve, a simplicity that is still simulationist enough to have actual impact on the world. That is our goal. That is what we seek to achieve. Anyway, so for instance, basically we know that this is going to be a little trade conglomerate. We're going to give them a conglomerate sheet. The question is, how big is their little organization? And what goals do they have? Well, we know that they wish to open up more trade. We also need to get them another marker as stated. Um, hmm. We'll just use this for now. There we go. And we need to get them a nation sheet. For that, we'll hop quickly over to our nation sheets. There we go. Now, we're going to use the simplified one, of course. And we're basically just going to grab this. Now let's bring up our data sheet. Bam. There we are. Okay. None of this is technically important. The upper stuff, that can be used for certain things, but it's not important for running nations for the most part. What is these. How powerful of a nation are they? We'll give them a 20 in force, a 20 in response, a 30 in resources, a 30 in information, no change on occult, and a 40 in influence. Now we have to do a little bit of math, just a little bit. So the 40 is going to be a plus 15. 30 is plus 10, I believe. Yes. 20 is plus 5. And bam, we have the basics of our nation's stats. Yes, there are likely lots of pirates to the north and the south. True. We do know that this entire area is full of pirates. They probably do control those trade hubs. I suppose we should note these neat facts about them. Trade alliance, here we go. One of their notes is going to be they will basically send out large caravans up north every so often, and they do control that passage as shown. Yes, let's see. And yes, over here will be pirate territory for the most part, which we will indicate somehow. Pirates. Looking for a token to represent said pirates. Easier said than done. There we go. There we are. So yes, up here is heavily pirate infested. Makes sense. So yes, up there, relatively theoretically you could transit through. It's not like every ship or anything's gonna get jumped, but it's not probably worth it. Best pay the trade dues and have a safe passage up through. There's also probably pirates down here, but that's in the frontier and we'll worry about that later. Ah, yes. So, basically we've placed pirates over here. I forget sometimes that the sheet blocks the screen because I don't see it when I tab over. Yes, pirates up here, and basically making this the only relatively safer trade routes, and through here. Theoretically this way, but that's also technically frontier. And there's probably pirates all down here, and not a mix over here, but basically we have this entire territory being pirate related. Yes. Let's see, what else do we want to note? I just always need to remember to close this when I'm done with it. Let's see. So, we know a little bit about them. We're going to give them some assets, just a few, to work with to begin with. Of these assets, we're going to give them oh, I'm give them an anti-piracy fleet and a the words, a defended trade fleet, and one more. But what? A lot more, actually. They will have a diplomatic asset. These will be quick assets, so I'm going to quickly scroll to the bottom of this sheet here and grab some quick assets. These aren't going to be too complex. We're literally just giving them something to work with should we ever need to roll for them. One thing we also theoretically need to do is make bot sheets, little sheets for the GM bot. The sheets for the GM bot basically will be charts we'd use to roll on and the like. Yep, tier 4, equipment 2. Good. The defended trade fleet will probably be 3, equipment 2, giving them 4 hits. And the diplomats will be very good at their job. 5, equipment 3. Basically, if we ever need, we can place these, and this will allow the organization to take actions. They can take actions without assets, but assets are the best way to take actions. This basically gives our little trade alliance a way to interact, send forces out to complete objectives. To be fair, they might not do that. We might not even use them at all. But it's nice to have, and it's a simple, quick thing to do. Let us give them something valuable. Let's give them a little bit more power. I'm looking for the right token. Huh, this will work. This will work. Oh, there we go. Okay. We are going to give them... Did I not do that? Oh, I could have sworn. This will take another moment. I thought I had an image I don't have. Nope, I do. It was just stored in a different location. We are giving them a strategic resource, basically. Notes. We'll give them a strategic resources of +3 quality, brackets, goods. They have a goods resource, basically. That means of a, well, it basically means they'll be able to make a lot more money than usual. Which basically makes sense. They have like something that they trade themselves. The there's not much news. Things go well. Just mostly trade and all that. But yes, the war goes on. The war goes on. Let's see. Basically, with this resource, they'll be able to make a lot more money. We'll note it as goods, and this resource will be, I'm not sure what the resource will rightly actually be, but with a +3, that's going to be 150 bucks minimum, which is, well, a significant increase. That's as much as a star system makes. Let's see. We'll note that in their sheet, too. Has a strategic resource goods within their territory. There we are. This was heavily involved in the creation of their little trade organization. Originally, they formed to export the strategic resource, but expanded. Expanded as a trade corridor with the wider area. Yes. Okay, so This is one of the reasons their little organization formed. Let's see. We have them, we have their little stat block. What else? So we have determined that this area will be pirate territory. We've determined, oh, I've done it again. This area will be pirate territory. This is our little trade nation. This, or our starting system, is a little nation on the border, really. They are a trade hub, but probably because they're one of the few corridors deeper in. Yes. Ooh, conflict. Perfect. In conflict, they're going to be in conflict with the trade alliance. Diplomatic currently. I can't type. There we are. As basically they will believe that the costs of using the trade corridor are too high. Basically, they want to pay less to trade up north. Yes, conflict, drama. It is a way to make nations feel alive, giving them goals and problems to solve. Let's see. How are they going to solve that? Simple. They currently they want to open a path through pirate territory. Huh. However, their military is weak. So basically, they're not going to be able to just engage the trade nation or batter their way through pirate territory and secure a corridor. They are A, tied with the pirates in a way, B, mismanaged as stated before, so it's going to be difficult for them. The trade alliance, what is their primary current goal? That's a good question. They need their own goal. Coffee good. Let's see. Um, do they have a goal other than maintain? Yes, yes, they do. And their goal wildly doesn't even involve the pirates. I believe they probably want to. Well, they definitely want to expand their organization. expand their organization to they want to open more trade routes and bring in more resources. This doesn't necessarily put them in direct conflict with the other people, at least not in their personal goals, other than wanting to probably force them into the alliance. Oh, they're not the only ones that struggle. Apparently, we just had a little hiccup there. Hopefully, things are still running. Yeah, hopefully. Yes. But yes, basically, it doesn't necessarily put them in direct conflict, but their primary goals obviously being, uh, ooh, huh. That does put us in an interesting situation. They are going to actually want piracy. Basically, they are going to actually want to keep the piracy going, so they're basically, oh, you want to trade with the North? Our group can keep ships going through. Oh, your world over there, you should give us better trade deals for security purposes. Look, the pirates are here. Basically, they're going to try and use the pirates to their advantage, which is wild given that the other government is tied with the pirates. It does, yet the other government that's tied with the pirates actually wants less piracy because that would open a route for them. It is an interesting situation that has been discovered. One faction tied with pirates, the other faction wants the pirates to maintain, but they're both against each other in a way. These are the kind of, well, world building aspects that we're literally here to make. This is our goal right here. Let's see. What else can we do? Hmm. It's always hard figuring out. See, the goal is not to stall. The goal is to keep the work flowing. Let's see. So, yes. What about the pirates? They are technically a faction, but they're not really. I suppose they're not worth being a faction. These pirates aren't a unified group of pirates. They probably have little hideouts and holdouts, but they're they're not going to become a faction, at least not currently, unless the bot says something, as their goals are currently literally just make profit off of these goings on. So they're not going to be getting any faction thing. We could always work on them later or give them upgrades, etc., etc. But for now, they are basically content. Let's see. What else? What else? We could work more in depth on any of these factions. We could continue working at this scale. We could zoom in. We could work on star systems. Well, that's the thing. There's genuinely infinite things to do. Well, not infinite, but basically infinite things to do. We have an entire sci-fi universe. Wow, that's the subtitle we've had for a long while. Galactic Requiem, a sci-fi universe. Wow. Um, that's a good question. Is there something to the north of the Trade Alliance? I assume that to the north of the Trade Alliance is. I don't know. It's a very good question. I will take a moment to sip coffee and ponder. We know it's a route to civilization, but what does that mean exactly? Huh. Is there? Well, I think that there are probably lesser worlds. I think that there are probably just lesser worlds up north because it's not like civilization is right up there past the line. But we don't really have a way to represent lesser worlds right now. Um, but yeah, no. I assume they are, don't get me wrong, they have governments and everything, but I assume they're just less powerful and less important. I mean, unless like I assume there's more powerful nations or other nations far, far more north, but just at the corner that we see, I don't think any of these worlds are too important. They're probably worlds that the trade organization's trying to bring under their banner. To the south, now that's where, well, we don't know what's down there. That's what the campaign's going to be about. I mean, of course, we can add more down there, even now. But I like the idea that this trade organization is the largest known area, and that eh, there might be lesser worlds here, but I like the idea that basically, I really like the idea that we are at the edge. Hence the whole, this is the last stop before heading deeper into the frontier. And as such, I don't think there are any major powers. Otherwise, like, if there were major powers really nearby, we'd probably, well, know about them and be starting there in our little journey deeper into the frontier. So I like the idea that there aren't really any other major powers in at least south of where we're starting. As for north, again, there's not much space to work with, and given what we've prepared, I still like those being lesser powers. And then what we're basically going to do is we're going to basically make these lanes that we have stop working well around here. We're basically going to box this area in with bad lanes and uncivilized areas that are less explored. Same with these, but they're slightly more civilized, but not unified. And then over here, we're just going to have broken down lanes and disunity and piracy and all that. And then, well, all this basically mostly unexplored for our exploration campaign is at least the goal. One thing I did want to do is roll on some trade goods for these people. For that, we'll go over to our trade book. I wanted to give them a few tags, just in case we want to partake in galactic trade. Worlds are generally given 4 trade tags. Of these tags, it can depend on world type. What kind of worlds? Okay, so the first world, their core world, is probably going to be industrial. Here we go. Let's zoom in. So their core world is going to be industrial. So we're just going to slap industrial tag on it. We're not going to modify it too much. The other worlds are going to be, well, no. This is their core world. Even though it has a strategic resource, it's not an industrial world. Uh, We'll redo that. The main world is going to be cosmopolitan. Yes. Their southern world is going to be industrial. Their northern world is going to be industrial. And their northernmost world is probably going to be agricultural. Basically, we're just giving a few different definitions to these worlds that can affect trade goods. They basically use the old stars without numbers tags for from the, the basically trade tags, basically. We're giving them little trade tags, which will influence the amount of money that is based on trade, should we ever wish to trade with them. Yes. And that basically will affect that to a degree if we ever do. This place, we're not really gonna, I suppose we could give it a trade tag. If we did give our system a trade tag, it would probably also be cosmopolitan, I would suppose. Which we will. Let's see. And then we go over to here, interact with the sheet. There we go. Okay. Basically, this will just, for the most part, affect slight trade, should we ever wish to. However, I'll tell you, I don't think we will be trading much. I mean, we might, if we find good deals. At start, we will be exploring as opposed to trading. But now we have a little basis to work with about what's to our north. even though we likely won't be going in that direction. Let's see, what else? What else? Um, and adventure. I suppose I kind of want to ramble about exploration and adventure. So, also talk about how the campaign works. For those of you who don't know, we have a series of charts, basically, in essence, what is nowadays called oracles and such, basically from a bunch of different things that are the GM bot. Basically, it's a bunch of charts we roll dice on to determine things. It simulates a GM with heavy interpretation from, well, yours truly. But we're here right now to talk about exploration. We, as I've said before, I think recently, is we added new exploration, adventure, and social rules that we will be partaking in this solo adventure, basically. Exploration, basically completing challenges and achieving goals and finding things that basically will reward us, points and everything, and money and all that as we basically explore. I mean, it's a system we're both testing, but also we're seeing how it works and using it. It is ideally going to be fun and ideal. It does need some testing and refining because it works. It works. It's just I'm not happy with certain aspects of it. The last time I tested it, looks at one of my players, uh, I learned that the system has flaws. Yes. Um, Currently, I mean, it's not the player's fault in any way, shape, or form. It's just I tested it with the player, and I was like, after I tested, I was like to myself, I realized that this doesn't work because of reasons. The campaign went fine. I just had to. No, no, it's not the player's fault at all. Genuinely, it's the system's fault. Genuinely. So what occurred was maybe I handled it incorrectly myself, but basically the campaign went fine. It's the behind the scenes stuff that didn't work, basically. Um, the player was given a series of tasks to find a thing, basically. They were trying to get from point A to point B. The difficulty of that is the exploration chart, while the player had encounters and it was ideal and fun, I hope. I think they had fun with it. The issue on the back end was exploration is filling a chart, basically. I say a chart. Basically, in order for me to track it, there's a track. And when you achieve a goal or do something, the track gets a little tick, basically. Ideally, when the track is full, you have achieved your goal. Now, the track can represent setbacks or time or a variety of factors. The issue that I remember that occurred was basically the player got to the destination before the track was full, which isn't really an issue. They had their encounters, they did their stuff, it's all good. I think they had fun. The issue was, what's the point of a track if the track doesn't, well, looks at the word, well, track. I mean, it works, but basically I came to the conclusion that there were some issues with exactly how the track measures things. And I quote, the length of the track is and the difficulty of the checks within is related to difficulty and length of the exploration. Character or team makes checks related to the exploration and all hazard and challenges and obstacles before them. A failure of a test or challenge may set the party back, cause damage, cause loss of supplies, or some other detrimental effect, while succeeding heavily at the track can grant bonuses or discoveries. I suppose if you don't complete the track, you don't get an additional discovery, but that doesn't mean you don't necessarily find what you're looking for. I don't know. Point being, it's this, it didn't, well, the track didn't track to the exploration. I mean, they got an encounter. It was a natural encounter, and I checkmarked the track. I suppose one thing one could do is enforce an amount of encounters to the track, but that doesn't feel right. Check more boxes off. I don't know. It just doesn't flow entirely naturally to the amount of things done. I don't know. It's not like it has to. It's just, hmm, I I just don't know. It just didn't work. True, true. But what if you find it before the track is even full? That's the issue. More so, what if you don't find it before? Or what if you don't find it after? I suppose if you don't find it after, you get a bonus, or you discover something, you get something good. That makes sense. But if you find it before the track's done, well, what then? That's the issue. And that I don't know how to solve. Though, to be fair, one thing I can say is my solo testing the track's not going to be entirely accurate for player use in one simple aspect. Um, the way solo works is the track often will actually indicate when the thing is found to a degree because, well, the GM bot runs the thing, so the track determines when we actually find it. While in a player aspect, that doesn't track one to one with the GM determining when it's reasonable for you to find it. I suppose that also can happen in the solo sense, but I don't know. And I suppose you could make it harder to get what you want to find, or impose some implication if the track isn't filled, or complication. Yeah, that is an option. You are correct. I had to finish my coffee quickly before it got too cold. Yes, true, true. I mean, in in the sense of in the Gembot sense, I can see the tracker because it's solo, and well, Gembot can't really hide that if we're tracking things. But and also in a sense of when using it as a GM with players, I can see it and they can't. And theoretically, I could use that as, yes, making things harder once they find it to a degree, imposing some consequence, or just awarding GM dice, or any variety of options can be done. Yes. Huh? When did that happen? That shouldn't be happening. What? That's not possible? Whoa. Wild. Ah, um, no, yeah, no, you are correct. Apparently, the angry emote is there. Why? I don't know. How? I don't know. It has detected my ranting and formed. Um, it's wild because it's not visible to me. Well, I mean, it is here visible on this screen. It's not on the other one, which is wild. Wild. Uh, huh. I suppose we'll test something. Take off my hat. Nope, yeah, no. Huh? My coat? No. Huh, why is it? Hmm, wild. My response to the angry emote being slightly there. How dare it? Wild. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why. I'll look into it, I suppose. It'll be added to the list of technical difficulties. So, um, yeah, the basically we'll be using it and testing our little exploration and social. We now have the DABZO system for social encounters, which can be really useful theoretically, which is basically rock, paper, scissors. We have investigation, which is also similar, except you get to ask questions when you succeed, and there's no real tracker. There can be, but it's more vague. We have lots of systems we'll use basically when running this. And I mean, the goal again is to simulate a universe, and hopefully it'll be fun to fly around exploring, finding things. I'm a, I'd say my favorite thing to test here is going to be the discoveries system. When exploring, you get discoveries that you can basically, when you explore enough, you'll theoretically find things and make little discoveries. And I look forward to rolling on the random chart and finding out what we find. I also look forward to getting into gunfights, finding trade, using the social system, investigating perhaps even. All of this I look greatly forward to. And ideally, we will actually be able to use these systems and refine them and build on to everything. Yes, pew pew with the shotgun. The reason we chose shotgun is for the variety of shells we can load into it. I seek to use something, like I said, I don't use too often, and it is very much in Galactic Requiem a survival weapon. I mean, you could always load slugs for the range, you can load different shells for different purposes, lots of options. Yes. Anyway, as I have started rambling, let me check one more time if there's any final preparations we need, really. Probably. We have our inventory, we have our ship, we even made some notes about the crew. before. This time we added the area around. But I think we'll cut it short here and call it. Hopefully this Sunday we'll remember and we'll start up rolling dice and actually adventuring through the system. Ideally, hopefully. Yes. Anyway, yeah, I think we will, in fact, call it here. As I have imperial business to attend to. So, as usual, thank you all for stopping by. I have been your host, Casimir Basilius, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. And I will finally give some coffee to that little creature. Yes, we will be back, hopefully, on Sunday. And we will definitely be here, more than likely, unless something goes wrong, on Wednesday. Yes. So, yes, have a wonderful day.